Well, there was a rumor going around. Well, no, I guess it actually turns out to be a fact. This is Bradford Ferguson of Rebellion Air, and the rumor is that he was going to be on my show this afternoon. No, I'm kidding. So, Bradford, what a week! Holy mackerel! And it just got more exciting and more interesting. The
But
stock,
wait, there's more.
but wait, there's more. At the end of the day, all of a sudden Tesla kind of took off like this, and I'm like, what in the world is going on? Because I had been really, really busy with all kinds of things. Took me a minute to figure it out, but apparently this is what happened. Let me read it, and then
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. The administration, meaning the U.S. administration, whoops, wait a minute. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy on Thursday released a new framework to boost autonomous vehicles. This administration understands that we're in a race with China to out-innovate, and the stakes couldn't be higher, Duffy said. Our new framework will slash red tape. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said it will expand a program to exempt some self-driving vehicles from all safety requirements and will streamline but continue its requirement that vehicles equipped with certain advanced driver assistance systems have to report all safety incidents. I think that's fair. I think it's fair that they have to and it's easy enough to report these safety incidents. So
Right.
anyway, that seems to have caused the stock to go up nicely in just before the end of the day. I assume that's what got it going because the rest of the market wasn't necessarily going in that direction at that point.
Yeah, I would say that would do it. Getting more clarity on the regulatory framework moving forward will help. If states and cities can't arbitrarily get in the way of things, that will help the rollout of autonomy. Um, Initially, and we'll get into this more, Tesla's going to start off mainly in Texas.
Mhm.
And then I think they'll go to Florida after that because
Oh,
Florida is lighter on regulations than California. California has much heavier reporting requirements. Um, but Enabling a federal framework under the National Highway Transportation Safety Agency or administration, uh, that that should allow Tesla to go to many of the states and just provide some consistency. If they're reporting to NHTSA, then they shouldn't have to report to the states.
yeah, and whether they report or not, I think is probably less interesting to Tesla than whether they are allowed just to do it.
Right.
And so I could imagine, some of the states that hate Elon right now, like the state of Washington. Did you hear
Hmm.
the bill that they passed today?
Was it to like try and get at Tesla sales in Washington, or what was it
So,
again?
so they have Washington's one of the states that followed the state of California with providing these regulatory credits.
Hmm.
And so, Tesla has been getting these regulatory credits, this income from regulatory credits. Well, I don't know if there are bicameral legislature up there or not, but at least one house up in the state of Washington passed a rule today pr creating a tax on those regulatory credits. So they're giving with
Okay.
one hand and taking away with the other. So I think
Hmm.
it's like a 10% tax on the regulatory credits. There's a probability that this will be absolutely unconstitutional because if it's only going to apply to one company, I think it's going to be unconstitutional based on my recollection of law school. And but in the meantime, it's evidence that they're doing it politically, obviously. They even said so. So I could imagine in the regulatory environment around the self-driving, they might also say, well, you have to do special things in Washington, and this might clock that. So
Right. And even if they apply it to all companies, half of it's going to pertain to Tesla because they're about half of EV sales in the United States.
right.
So maybe they have to do that, but they could also just reduce the benefit by 10%.
It's so bizarre. It's like it's all political. So the cool thing though,
Maybe part of it though is Amazon. Amazon's
oh,
really powerful in Washington.
could
So if
be.
you're getting a credit to buy EVs, they're getting a credit to buy Rivian vans
Yeah.
i- that are Amazon delivery vans in Washington.
Yeah.
And they could buy all of them in Washington. So Rivian could deliver them all to Washington. So they get the full um,
Right. Yeah.
that full benefit. So that might be a corporate giveaway.
It could be, but I do know that there was specific statements by the authors that said that they didn't think it was fair for Tesla to be receiving these regulatory credits. So,
Oh,
so
okay. So we're talking about a regulatory credit, not like a sales tax credit.
no, I think this is a credit that they're getting by virtue of selling vehicles that don't have, that don't,
Zero
right,
emissions
right,
vehicle.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm wrong about the whole
Okay. All
Amazon
right.
thing. All
That's all
right.
right. We'll,
Sorry about that.
it's the first time you've ever been wrong that I know of. That's- Well, okay. So that's the United States. Then
Mhm.
you pointed out to me when I came on, you said, hey, there's some action going on in Europe too. So what was that all
Yeah.
about?
And we'll come back to the earnings call in Texas in a
Oh, yeah,
moment.
absolutely. 100%.
So Tesla got an exemption to run their FSD supervise in Norway, but it's with Tesla employees only. So they're basically allowing Tesla to test it in Norway, even though, and this is a really stupid language, but even though the Tesla does not meet the safety requirements of some UN rule number 79, but basically those are requirements that prevent Tesla from doing like automatic lane changes. Um, and it just makes it impossible to prevent Tesla from offering the software in Europe as like an anti-competitive measure. This may all change in May. So Tesla's applying for some kind of exemption in the Netherlands
Yep.
in May. And there may be more countries behind this whole Norway thing. So they're rumored to be several other countries that they're getting this exemption.
It's so amusing to me that the Tesla, I'm sure, has presented all these countries and the EU and the UN and the US and everybody else piles and piles of data. I mean, just
Mhm.
piles of data. We don't get this information, but I'm guessing I can't imagine they're not providing them with the data that would say that this is the number of accidents that have happened when FSD was deployed and where FSD was at fault.
Right.
And then if the regulatory agency wanted to, they could say, okay, show us the videos from those accidents that you say FSD was not at fault so that we can agree with you or not or disagree with you. And Tesla would be able to do that. It seems like it seems like they would be able to overwhelm them with the fact that they've got hundreds of thousands of miles, but millions of miles at this point,
Yeah.
billions actually, I think, of miles of driving that is probably close to flawless, at least with
Yeah.
regard to whether under supervision that there's no accidents.
And there would be statistics around like hundreds of millions of safe lane changes too.
Yes, yes.
But I think it's like an arbitrary and capricious rule that they made. Allegedly, there's something with Japanese cars where some bowling ball thing where it's very hard for US automakers to uh, I don't know if it's like a bowling ball has to be in the back seat and can't come out of the back seat at a certain speed of braking or I don't know what it is, but they have some arbitrary safety regulations to prevent US car sales in Japan.
Yes, yes,
It's
yeah,
just an anti-competitive thing. And what's funny is like Mercedes, BMW, and others, they'll say, "Oh, we got this great driver assistance software, and ours is safe," and they'll act like Tesla's is not or something.
Right. Yeah, because we're seeing an awful lot of YouTube videos coming out of China of people driving their vehicles in scary, scary
Yeah.
situations. I mean, scary situations, like on
One lane gravel mountain roads with at least a 30% drop off on each side.
and no
Crazy.
barriers, and nothing to catch you if it goes wrong.
That's right.
Yeah, so we're seeing some crazy stuff come out of China, and then I've seen at least one, I think, post today on X from China that was saying, after having driven, I was driving all the other, the Neo and all these other ones, and once I drove FSD, it was like these other ones are all garbage. He
Yeah.
didn't use garbage. He didn't say garbage, but basically that's what it implied.
It, it was something on the order of like the Tesla self-driving one is the only one worth doing or something like that.
Something in that order. Yes.
Mhm.
All right. So we're
I'm
getting
gonna take off my sweater. I'm a little warm, so I'll be right back. You keep going.
okay. All right. Okay. You didn't want us to watch you undress? Come on now, Bradford.
There we
So,
go.
oh, there you go. Presto changeo. We've been watching some videos like that anyway. Uh, you're supposed to have it instantly change.
Boom.
Okay, so you have had some strong opinions today about
Mhm.
the rollout in Texas and how that's going to go.
Yeah.
Gary Black and others suggest Meyer. Anyway, a couple of
Meyer Thacker. Yeah.
Meyer Thacker,
Hmm.
thought that this was kind of weak. That the
Yeah.
that the rollout is going to be 10 to 20 vehicles, and someday maybe they'll do 21. But
Hmm.
so you said Tesla is going to learn what is needed for Robotaxi, both for fleets and for customer cars being added to the Robotaxi network. Once they
Hmm.
figure out how it goes in Texas, they can literally copy and paste the process in infrastructure for any other jurisdiction with similar rules.
Yeah. So, Waymo has experience running a robotaxi network, but Tesla does not. They don't know what's truly required. They don't have to have safety drivers or not starting with safety drivers in Texas. The remote operators are mainly, it sounds like they're mainly only going to be there to force the car to reboot or to correct itself out of a situation. They're not going to like sit there and drive the car remotely.
Cannot actually, apparently.
And if you think about it, Elon, they talked about remote operators that can do this. So you're also not going to have a remote operator if you have a safety driver. Because if you have someone in the seat, you're not going to have
Right.
someone remotely operated.
Exactly.
So maybe in the first few weeks, there might be a safety driver there, but very shortly after that, they are not required to have a safety driver. I doubt they'll have one.
Mhm.
Um, I'll agree with Gary and Meyer. When I first heard the number 10 to 20, my heart sank. I did not like that number. I expected a number like 200 or higher
Yeah, yeah,
that they would start with.
right.
I that really hit me in the gut. And I would say it's my hope that Tesla quickly scales that number. So like in week one, if everything goes fine, that they double that number and keep doubling until they start to run into some kind of issues with being able to support the cars or something like that.
Hmm. Well,
So go ahead.
I was just going to say that my son lives in West Los Angeles, and I was just over visiting with him, and he said that for him it feels as if the Waymos are everywhere,
Hmm.
and yet there's only like 100 Waymos in LA. So
Hmm.
if there's only 100 Waymos in LA and he feels like they're everywhere, and I've seen a couple of them and I'm hardly ever over there, then
Hmm.
having 20 or 40 or 60 of them in a much, much smaller town of Austin might seem like a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be the case. So Tesla's building this like control center where they can monitor what's going on. They can monitor the app. They can figure out what to do with the car when it drops someone off if it doesn't immediately have another person to give a ride to. Make sure the drop-offs and pickups go okay. Um, one thing the cars could do after you drop someone off, if you don't have another fare, is you can have FSD drive without a destination.
True.
So it'll just go around. It might just try to go straight until it has to turn, something like that. But you have it tool around on the slow streets, essentially what you want to have it do. Um, if you want, you can maybe have it park on side streets, but parking might be a little tricky. Um, Go ahead.
But generating more FSD unsupervised miles would be
Hmm.
valuable.
Yeah, you might as well get some more miles, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
that's true. So they're gonna figure out how many people in service do we need to support these cars? How many people do we need to help clean these cars? They already have the robot, but getting the cars to the spot with the robot and all that, charging the cars. That's a Model Y. You probably need to plug that one in. They could make a special one that's wireless.
Sure.
Um, so once they figure out all that support, they can figure out, how many people do we need to support the fleet? How much how much compute does the app need? What kind of traffic is the app getting? What do we need to serve that traffic? And then you can keep scaling that in Austin, but then you can begin to take it to Houston and Dallas. And then you have a whole state. You have like this tri-city area. I think Waco's in the middle of those three cities.
Right.
That's a pretty massive market. You don't have to serve all of Texas.
Hmm.
It'd be nice if everyone got a Robotaxi or whatever, but you don't have to do that. And then literally you can take that blueprint
Hmm.
and move it over to Florida and make a whole Florida control center. Maybe some of that control center can be in Texas, but you'll need some humans to help out. Maybe some optimists eventually, but humans initially.
Well, and they're gonna, I guess to me, if I was setting up the business, the thing that would come to my mind is how many rides am I getting? Where are the rides concentrated? And of course, that's going to change every day. It's going to be different on the weekends. It's going to be different if the weather's good, the weather's not good, et cetera. These things are going to change. So I'm going to start getting a database of information about deployment.
Hmm.
Is there a game in town? Is there, football game or whatever going on? Is there some kind of concert? Is there a political rally? I mean, all these kind of things are going to start playing in because the real money is events. Airports and events, those are that's where the big money is. The normal transportation of people, to and from their jobs or whatever, that's the small money. But you can charge much more for, 7 o'clock on a Friday night, taking somebody to the football game and dropping
Hmm.
them off. So they'll generating that kind of information is going to be where they're going to start to be able to concentrate their profits. And then getting information back from the customers. I'm assuming that they'll be asking the customers for reviews. So you
Hmm.
start having the reviews coming in. So
Yeah.
all of that will be almost to me more important than even the infrastructure questions, because I think they're doing some of that up in Northern California right now with the supervised
Hmm.
program that they're doing with their employees.
Right. And it's important right now that Tesla do it near their base of operations. The base of operations in California or near San Francisco, but also their base of operations in Austin, Texas. So it's a fast feedback loop. You're not waiting for something to cross the Pacific or, some other town in the United States. You're getting that really quick feedback loop with your employees that are, right there in the city.
So one of the things I've been talking about, which I know sometimes I start sentences with, I'm the only one talking about this.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes like, for instance, I'm probably one of the very few people in our group that is actually, been in marketing my entire career.
Hmm.
And that's what I do for, that's what I look at myself as a sales and marketing person.
Right.
So from a marketing standpoint, what I've been thinking about is that Tesla has massive brand identity
Hmm.
and they have a massive already installed base of people who own Teslas, friends and family of people that own Teslas, and people
Hmm.
that own Tesla stock, and just fanboys that don't own stock and don't own a car, but they're just fans of Tesla or Elon Musk. So these have this massive fan base already built in every city, and especially Austin.
Hmm.
Then you have friends and family of people that are employed there. So this gives them an automatic opportunity for
Waymo.
way more rides, way
Yeah,
more
that's right.
rides
Hmm.
than Waymo, or maybe even Uber. And also people that already have the app because they're owners.
Hmm.
So if I have an app and I want to go to airport, I don't have to. I'm looking here. I got my Uber app, my Lyft app, and I've got my Tesla app. Well, I'm going to go to the Tesla app every single time if I'm in that situation. So I think they get a big benefit, and like you
Hmm.
say, especially in Austin, in terms of a lot of rides. So I think they'll be increasing it rather rapidly. You ran a poll on that subject.
Yeah, what I asked people was, how often do you think Tesla is going to increase their fleet in Austin, provided the previous day, week or month went okay. And most people chose like that they would increase it on a weekly or monthly basis. Um, I'm hopeful it'll be in a daily camp, but I could see like people in a committee, like you have committees, and what committees can default to is like the most conservative person on the committee. So that's maybe when you bring in Elon, so he can be like, no, this is the hammer. This is what I decide. But um, so what they might do is they'll pick an arbitrary measuring period. So I hope it's like a week or something like that, where it's short. It's not as long as a month. So it would be bad if they sat at 10 or 20 for a month, just because
Yeah.
that's what the committee wanted. But um, I'm hopeful on a weekly basis they're doubling it. But I'd rather they just evaluate on a daily basis. Like, did everything go okay today? What do you think if we double the amount of rides tomorrow? Could you handle that? Like each person and service and tracking the trips and et cetera. Um, so I'm hopeful it's at least on like a weekly basis because there's no regulation in Texas holding them back.
Right, right. They can do as many as they want. So, of course, on a customer experience basis, we all know the rule. People want to be picked up in under 6 minutes.
Mhm.
So
I
allow
think the
them to
pressure will be on Tesla to increase the number
make
of
sure
cars.
that they're
Yeah.
operating in that way, getting the results in 6 minutes. And it would seem to me that they just have like an virtually unlimited ability to shrink or increase the fleet because it's not like they've got a problem finding a few cars.
Mhm.
So, and if they decide that they've got 100 cars out there and they only need 95, it's certainly easy enough to pull five back or whatever. They have advantages on so many levels compared to any of their competitors because
Right.
they're the manufacturer. And especially, like you say, in Austin, if they want to pull back if they get to 500 cars and they want to pull back 100, they just bring them back and put them in the lot, and bring them right back to Tesla's Tesla's own facility if they wanted to.
Yeah, and you mentioned the built-in fan base and the built-in number of shareholders and owners of Teslas. And Uber has something like this too, where on the referral app for Tesla, you can allow the referral app to send a text to all of your contacts on your phone. So if you wanted to get your referrals going, you can send one to everyone on your phone. You could do the same thing with Robotaxi, where uh, you took a ride and you can give a free ride to anyone on your contact list, and for each person that takes a free ride, you get a free ride.
Right, right. Yeah, Uber did that when they first started out. I
Mhm.
was watching one of those interviews with the founders the other day. You also have, oh yeah, there's going to be, I don't know, 5 billion videos on X
Yeah,
and
there'll be a lot of videos. Yeah.
of people taking their ride. And now, what do you think? Do you think they should make these cars, to the extent possible? Do you think they should make them a different color? We had Lyft, you may remember, had a little mustache or something when they first came out. I forget what it was, some kind of little gizmo that they used as a way
Mhm.
to identify themselves. Uber and Lyft both have a little sticker in the window, but it would seem like you want something a little more garish,
Mhm.
something a little more garish to identify these cars.
Yeah, maybe you don't do gold because of
Yeah, yeah.
the coming cyber cab, but maybe you could do rose gold, or you could do a copper or something like that.
Shout out to Kelly. Kelly, if you're watching our video, shout out to you for your metallic rose gold car. Have you seen her? She's on X. She has a rose gold metallic car. It's probably the most interesting version of a Tesla I've ever seen.
I'm tempted to do the C3PO wrap, but my wife would probably get mad at me if I did that.
All right. Well, does that cover the Texas rollout for today, or is there more to it?
Yeah, so just about the earnings call, like we didn't get a company update. So it wasn't like vastly different than any other earnings call.
Right. Yeah.
So there wasn't like some new company update. There wasn't video to go along with the audio,
Yeah.
but we got a lot of clarity around the Tesla Robotaxi rollout in Austin.
Right.
That was what I was wanting, is like some clarity around that. We got some clarity around Optimus.
Right.
There's a little disappointing news. Like we're worried about rare earths with that, but with the magnets and like
Right.
it might slow down the rollout of Optimus. But they had the opportunity to say there's a problem with rare earths for their motors, and they did not say that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're
In
not
fact,
impacted by rare earths for their motors.
yeah. In fact, I think we want to make sure that the nuance is really clear here too. They didn't say that it was the lack of the rare earths. It was actually the lack of the magnets made by the rare earths.
Right.
It was the problem, which is I think, a much more difficult problem to overcome. So you not only have to make sure, I mean, rare earths are everywhere, and there are small amounts of rare earths being made in a lot of, are being mined and refined, that you can get, they could probably find the rare earths that they need. But then you have to take that, and you have to make it into a magnet. And
Mhm.
it might or might not be, you know, easy or hard to set up a line to do that somewhere. So I think that's why he mentioned it, is because it's literally the magnet, not just the raw rare earth itself.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think, what do you think? You think the China situation will be resolved in the next, or at least that the parties will be speaking to one another within the next few days?
Few days is a bit aggressive, but I'd like to be wrong about that. But I think the pressure's on China. If they wait a full 90 days from the beginning of April, I think that will be very tough for their economy, could cause a banking crisis. So I don't think they can just sit and do nothing. And like I predicted last week, India and China are not friends, and India is going to be very motivated to make a deal with the United States. And there's rumblings that a deal is imminent with India, which would be a really big thing because India has been very anti-competitive with
Yes.
imports for a very long time.
Yes. And Vietnam is the other one, the other major competitor to China on the cheap plastic junk side.
Mhm.
That's what I was uh, in the promotional products industry when I had my bicycle water bottles. In the
Mhm.
promotional products industry, they call it CPS, which is not the same as junk, not cheap plastic junk, but something that begins with an S. So
Mhm.
anyway, almost all of that stuff was coming out of China, but Vietnam
GP
has
GPOS.
yeah, right. So that and garments and of course tennis shoes and stuff are anyway. So the Vietnam is also aggressively coming to the table to put their
Mm,
program together. Also, I heard a guy doing a video the other day who had very top level contacts in China. This is a guy who spoke Chinese, even though he was white as you and me, and he
mm,
said he spoke Chinese. He was listening to Chinese information coming out of China in Chinese, and also had these top contacts. And he said
mm,
that it is as bad as you're hearing from people in terms of factories shutting down, people being sent home, uh,
mm,
from their jobs. And when you've already got the crisis on the real estate side, now you add another layer of crisis on the manufacturing sside, kind of a
mm.
double whammy, and could be hurting them a lot more than the Chinese can stand.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, and you add India on top of that. India is a very big and consequential country. So I think that does put more pressure on China to come to the table. I I think it would behoove them to get to the table as quickly as possible, but they don't want to appear weak.
Right,
That's the problem.
exactly. So we didn't get any guidance on cars from the earnings call. In fact, we didn't even. I was hoping maybe they would just give us some kind of a sense of how the Model Y was moving so far. They said it was ramping very fast, but we didn't get any sense of how it was selling through in the United
Mm.
States or in Europe. We
Yeah,
get the
they were asked directly about orders, and they did not talk about orders in their answer.
Yeah, so that was a little disappointing. We'll
Hmm.
get that over the next few weeks, but I think it's super interesting that the 2 weeks before the call and ever since the call, the stock has been moving with the market.
Right.
There was no drop off before the call or FOMO into the call. There was no drop off after the call or
Mhm.
increase after. I mean, it has been moving. I've never seen it act like this around a call before. Have you?
No, that's a great realization. Typically Tesla has some kind of reaction that's different than the market when they have their earnings calls, for sure. To me, that might say that people who wanted to position themselves differently leading up to the call had already done so,
Hmm.
and maybe had done so like a couple weeks before or a week before. So I'll admit that, we bought the dip with Tesla. We didn't like buy the best price or anything, but we already got how much we wanted. So we added to the market in early April, so April 7th and 8th. So
Hmm.
when everyone was going crazy and talking about the world ending and Bill Ackman, all that.
Yes, yeah.
So we were pretty much positioned, and we didn't really have much extra cash to buy more. And we didn't really see the need to sell or anything.
So the after hours market right now, or the pre-market, whatever you want to call it, the equities or the S&P specifically is back over the 10% discount.
Retracement
Yep,
from the
retracement.
low.
Well, it's more than a 10% retracement. It's also higher than the 10% from the all-time high. Another,
Okay.
okay, so 5,200 was about that level,
Okay.
give or take a 10, and now it's back over 5,220. So does that mean anything to you? Do you think that's indicative of the fact that the fear, and the VIX came down a lot.
Mhm.
It was 27, I think, last time I looked.
Okay.
I didn't look at the end of the day, but it was at 27 last time I looked. So is the fear coming out at this point?
Yeah, I think the bottom's behind us. I said as much
Last
pretty soon after the the 8th of April. Um so the VIX only peaks once in crises. So it doesn't like the fear doesn't get higher as the crisis wanes. I know there's some people that think like there's some kind of depression that's going to happen, but things are cooling down in general. I don't think China's going to suddenly invade Taiwan. Um, so I think things are fine. So what'll happen is, maybe the market hangs out around here for a bit, but then eventually it's just going to move on,
Okay.
and the media will move on,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we'll just kind of forget this ever happened, and the market will be higher.
Yeah, so I mean, the economic news today was kind of okay. Housing prices softening just a little bit. We've had the beige book came out yesterday, was okay. There was no
Mhm.
crisis in the beige book. Some of the other information that came out today was all okay. In fact, durable goods was actually a little good.
Mhm.
It was very high actually, but it was all in transportation. But all of that looked okay. And so the market's maybe starting to feel like we can weather this, even,
Yeah.
even with China and the US still not coming to terms.
Yeah. And we may be in a recession, but what happens is the market bottoms typically 6 to 7 months before the recession is ever announced.
Right.
So there is going to be and I'm guessing Jeff Lutz has been talking about this a lot, is there is going to be a supply shock.
Mhm.
There, the lack of boats going between China and the US, it is going to be a problem. And the uncertainty around tariffs and what happens when your boat arrives in the US, and figuring that all out, that has a chilling effect on economic activity and business investment.
Mhm. Mhm.
But this will be something we get through. We had a supply shock in 2020 that continued into 2021, but we're not going to have the devastation that we had back then. We're not going to have such loss of human life, things closing, the lack of travel, all this stuff.
Yeah, in fact, I understand that most of our toilet paper is made in the US. So I think
Good.
it's all going to be okay. So other things in the call, one of the things that's been on my mind for quite a long time, and Elon brought it up, and Cern and I will be talking about it tonight at 7:45 in some depth, or is that going to be tomorrow night? I can't remember, but um, the energy storage side of things. So every time we open another energy storage unit that that has a capability of doing 40 gigawatt hours or 10,000 units of megapacks,
Hmm.
area of your interest, high interest. Every time we do that, it's the equivalent of about 300,000 Model 3s in
Hmm.
terms of, and maybe more than that in terms of profit. We now have three of these in various stages, one complete, one just starting to produce, and one that'll start producing this more later this year.
Hmm.
Elon changed the number on that. He had been talking about getting to 1 terawatt. He specifically and clearly said, and you could tell it was intentional, terawatts.
Hmm.
So if he wants to get, first of all, we're only going to be at when these three are all done and ramped, we're going to be at somewhere around 120 gigawatts. So that's only 12% of 1 terawatt.
Hmm.
Why do you think they aren't opening these like super fast? What do you think's holding them back? If Elon believes that there's that much market, why
Hmm.
wouldn't they be putting one in Europe and one in India and maybe one in Japan? And I mean, it's the opportunity is huge.
It's good you mentioned India, and you're talking about the mega factories where they put the mega packs together. There was someone on the call, it might have been the head of Tesla Energy, who was talking about a shortage of batteries, the LFPs that typically go into the mega packs. So I think part of that is tariffs, um, and maybe China not sending as much over, but I think it's around tariffs. So they need to figure out that battery supply. Um, Tesla is figuring out how to refine lithium, not be dependent on China. Um, India, they have allegedly a lithium mountain in India that I think went out for bidding on, who could mine that, all that. So
Oh,
that'll be mined by some Indian company.
hmm.
But some of the job listings Tesla has put in India indicate something going on with like Tesla Energy.
Oh, so maybe they would build a refinery in India because
Yeah, I think it would make sense for Tesla to build a refinery in India or work with an Indian partner to build a refinery there, and then they would have the lithium supply to make batteries in India.
okay, so yeah, so
And I think there's a supply issue maybe with making them directly in Europe.
okay, so yeah, so I did a video last night on batteries.
Hmm.
I'm going to remind people of that yet again, because at the end of the day, I hate that phrase. It says so shop worn. But anyway, Tesla is a battery company who puts some stuff around batteries and sells them.
Hmm.
Everything that they do has to have a battery. And so to your point, there's another item, the semi truck, which I've also wondered how the heck why the heck they're only going to make 40,000. They could make so much money on those semi trucks.
Hmm.
And again, batteries, they need a ton of batteries for those semi trucks.
Right.
And so I'm going to encourage people on that video I did last night to go back and look at that. It goes into all the facilities that are being opened this year in the United States to make batteries, Panasonic and LG and all the rest. What Tesla is doing, as far as I can tell, with batteries. And so I'm just going to put that card up at the end for folks to look at that because it's really critical to everything that they're doing. So yeah, India, if you want to
So
make
it says Tesla might eliminate the anode lithium refinery update battery supply question
Yep, that's
mark.
the one. Yep.
Rand, Randy Kirk. So I'm going to get that one started. I'm going to watch that one next on my ride home.
Okay, good. And then so yeah, and so that would be those two. So both the Megapacks and the semi truck, that might be holding up both of them from a lot larger production, both of which are hugely profitable.
Mhm.
And the TAM is uh, bigger than anything else except maybe the actual Optimus robot. The number of semi trucks that they could build would be massive. Brian Wong commonly says he thinks they could do 4 million a year.
Yep.
I'd say I'd take 1 million.
I think Larry's pretty bullish on Tesla Semi as well.
That's right.
Larry
Yeah.
Goldberg.
Yes, we've been talking about it for practically. I think it's, and we talk about it in the book, the Elon
Mhm.
Musk mission. We talk about it. All right. So anything on the rebellion air side? Any of your special products that you're watching that you want to end on tonight before I give the numbers?
I would say no.
Oh,
No.
okay. Nothing to report, huh? All right. Okay.
Just I'll share that I've been driving FSD and it's doing great. It is doing right on red illegally in one spot, but uh, and this is like a new thing for it, but other than that, it's doing great, super smooth, pleasure to drive. We've been sending videos out to clients, so we sometimes we send a video out to Rebellion Air clients. We also have some diversified clients, and we'll send out. We recently did one where I was showing them Tesla FSD and how good it is. We were talking about Tesla's earnings and
Uh-huh.
all that good stuff, and uh, it's just it's nearly perfect, but it's safe. It is safe.
Mine today just actually made a right turn on the yellow. I mean, it was yellow. It had plenty of time to stop, and it went ahead and made the right turn on the yellow. I was very surprised at that.
Mhm.
That was pretty aggressive for on regular. But anyway,
Call that a California yellow.
California yellow. I would encourage, this is one of the things I think I'm going to say maybe at the end of every video from now on. I would encourage anybody out there that owns a Tesla, especially if you already have FSD, but even if you need to, pay the $100 a month, it's time to try it again.
Mhm.
I was one of the nervous Nellies. I had used it and then I was like, it's kind of scaring me. I could go to sleep in the car right now. I would have no hesitation to sleep in the car right now. It never makes any
Yeah.
mistake. Mine's and
I
I'm on hardware 3.
yeah. I don't have a hesitation around it either. Yeah, if you don't own it, you could also subscribe for a month. Like there's no lock-in. You can subscribe for a month, especially if you have a big trip to a nearby city where it's a couple hours away. Go ahead and subscribe, do that trip. Also, check it out, see how it drives in the suburb or city that you end up in. You can also book a free test drive in a Tesla if you don't own a Tesla. You can get a free test drive. You don't have to buy one, but you can try it out, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised on how good it is.
So I have
Seeing and experiencing is believing.
it. So I have my all my what do you call it price target for all-time high by the end of May.
Oh,
You're gonna take the overs or the unders on that?
well, it could work in the chart. So like it seems crazy, but there's actually like this. It's called like an ascending wedge where it goes like that, and
Yeah,
there's like this. There's an ascending wedge in the charts where technically it could happen. So I think it's possible. So I I would be I don't know if this language even makes sense, but like I'd be shocked if it does happen. Like I'd still be kind of stunned by it, but I wouldn't be really surprised.
right.
It'd just be like awesome to see it. I'd be like awe-inspired to see it happen.
Yeah, well, on the fundamental side, it would require that the macro is doing fine, maybe
Mhm.
not back to full risk on, but at least doing fine. And then
Yeah.
it would require that there's no interruption in the plan for June, that's not been
Mhm.
put off at all. And it might help if the Model Q came out between now and then. So, but
The
I'm not
Tesla
counting
Q.
on the Model Q to make it happen, but that would
Mhm.
be a nice boost to
Yeah.
get it to 488 again. All right.
Had to go with your thought on, that the stock is being kind of driven by macro for now. It's a good chunk of what you're talking about could happen just with macro,
Yeah,
with
exactly.
good news or lack of bad news on the tariff crisis.
Yeah, just getting back to the S&P all-time high would probably drive the stock up 100 points, roughly, if it stayed with, yeah. About,
Mhm.
like a 3 beta on the S&P. That's me. That's how I see it. Any last words of wisdom for us today?
No, let's
All
get right to the numbers.
right. Thank you, as always, for coming on board, Bradford.
All right.
Okay, what did the numbers do today? Well, we start off with Tesla, which was up 3.5 during regular hours to 259.51. So back into that 360 range, but then it just kept going up another 1.46. I'm sorry, wait, I did that all wrong. Let me go back and do that over. That was 3.50% today. The 259 was correct, but it's up another 1.46% in the after hours to 263.30. That is a very strong number. And again, it was very, very, very vertical at the very end of the regular trading, but had been down in terms of the beta earlier in the day. If we go and take a look at the Dow, it was up 1.23. NASDAQ was up 2.74. S&P was up 2.03. So again, you can see the NASDAQ up 2.74. Tesla should have been up at least 5.5, but was only up 3.5 based on the beta of 2 to 3. But even if you use 2, it was not performing as well as the NASDAQ today. You had the Magnificent Seven all up, as you could imagine, as well as all the Cathie Woods up strongly. So then what about in the bond market? Today was a good day, especially now well, let me see. My computer is letting me down here. Here we go. All right. So no, I'm sorry. When I looked last, the bonds were going down in the pre-market, but now they have bounced back up again. I'm talking about the yields. So up 1.2 in the pre-market. So we're sitting at 4.317, fairly close to where it's been, 4.3, 4.33 has been around where it's been. So unfortunately, we're not getting the kind of move that I'd like to see there. Oil up a nickel in the pre-market, sitting at 62.84, a little higher than it was. Natural gas is under $3, staying under $3 now at $2.91, down 0.48%. You've got gold up another 15 bucks in the pre-market at 33.64. So as I mentioned earlier today, if you were watching, I did say the other day that 3,500 was too high. We did have that break way down a couple hundred points, almost a couple hundred points. Now it's clawing some of that back. We'll see. The most likely thing would be it would get to 3,400, around 3,400, getting 50% of that move back. But maybe not. We'll see. We'll see how that all plays out. Silver up 0.27 in the pre-market at $33.59. So trying to move towards that $34, $35 range where it was. Copper continuing up another 0.49. It's now at $4.88. So the $5 level again might be a resistance area, that round number resistance. We'll see what happens there. Dollar continues mixed here. The headline is that the rally unraveled, but it looks like it's mixed. Bitcoin up 505 for the day. Again, this is for those of you who don't follow it regularly, Bitcoin moves is a 24-hour market. So this is what's happened today, sitting at 93.9. So today, Bitcoin is not moving as strongly as the rest of the what you call it, the risky stocks, the NASDAQ and Tesla. So it is also not moving quite as much as the rest. So then, the pre-market, look at this. It was well up, so that's come off. So Tesla now has recovered almost all of that difference that it had during the regular hours. NASDAQ is only up 0.45, and it's up 1.45. Or around there is where we saw a minute ago. The Dow is actually down 25 points or 0.06. The S&P is up 0.31, up 17 points, putting it at 55.28. So that is definitely at this point, if you take 10% off the high, which I think was 6,100, then you would be around 55.20, and we're now at 55.28. So definitely back into that territory. We'll see if it holds. Yeah, what else would you like to know? That's pretty much everything there is to tell you about tomorrow. Please hit the like and subscribe. Come join us again, CERN Basher on at 7:45. Excellent show. As you know, CERN always puts together great stuff, but this is really new stuff. I would call it even breaking news. And so come on back and check that out. And then last night, let me remind you about that battery. That battery video that I did last night was maybe more important than the CERN Basher video coming up now. If you had to make a choice, you may want to go back and watch that. Although the stuff the CERN Bashers talk about tonight is also very good in terms of understanding Tesla and understanding the overall environment around the Tesla story. But the battery thing is key. It's central to the entire Tesla story. And as we just talked about, shortages of batteries can be a real problem for Tesla in terms of maximizing their opportunity. And also just being in the right battery at the right time. So I talk about all of that in that video. I'll put that card up right there for you to go back and check it out. Okay, I think I've done it. I think that's all there is to say, except for liking and subscribing and joining Patreon and all that kind of stuff. So I will say for now that it's been great talking to you.